We're joined by Stephen Horrel. He's a senior fellow at the Center for European Policy Analysis. Thank you so much for being with us on the program. Now, we're seeing the U.S. use this narrative of China and Russia potentially acquiring Greenland. What are the prospects of that ever happening? And is that a valid argument to make by the U.S. to essentially take over the island?
So the Arctic in general, Greenland in particular, certainly are vital to the security interests of the West. But just now in Ms. Levitt's stand-up, the idea of China or Russia taking over Greenland is laughable. It's really ludicrous. One thing we have seen in the last 4 years of Russia's war on Ukraine is that even Putin is very deterred by the idea of Article 5, NATO collective self-defense.
The EU has been pushing back. How could we see them retaliate if Trump were to use any sort of force to acquire Greenland?
So obviously, yes, in a nation versus nation, the idea of the U.S. and Denmark obviously is a mismatch. So what I think we're already seeing other NATO allies, friends of Denmark like the U.K. and Germany, beginning to move personnel to the territory. To me, that's a very sound way to do this. It's not belligerent. It's not standing up to goading or otherwise trolling Mr. Trump, but it should be very effective in reinforcing that this is not going to be like Caracas or Venezuela.
Where does NATO stand in all this?
I think you saw Secretary General Rutte. The idea of two NATO nations clashing over territories is very counter to the ideas behind the alliance. So NATO is obviously in the interest of peace amongst the allies, but also keeping the alliance together. The idea that certainly there are flare-ups between nations from time to time, but the fundamental togetherness, the collective self-defense, the commitment to the transatlantic community has kept NATO together for decades, and it's been the most successful alliance in history.
And we are expecting a U.S. delegation to meet Danish officials on Wednesday to sort out this issue overall. Where does diplomacy stand at this point in time? Does Trump, would he agree to settle for something else rather than acquire the island totally?
So I think another important thing to think of there is yes, Mr. Trump is by nature very transactional and about self-interest. And that has been ingrained now into U.S. foreign policy, more so in this second term than in his previous term, which ended 5 years ago. So, yes, diplomacy, the deal making certainly has a place. That's one of his favorite things, is to make a deal. And I think an important part is would be for the Kingdom of Denmark to emphasize the current agreement. The status of forces security agreement between the U.S. and Denmark allows for up to 50 U.S. bases. So if this is truly about our security interests, we already have a green light to cooperate with Denmark, to cooperate with the Greenlandic peoples, and do what needs to be done. And that was the norm for decades, U.S. strategic resources in Greenland for decades during the Cold War. So there are potentially things on offer. But then it gets to the idea of the personal ownership that Mr. Trump also spoke about in a recent interview with the New York Times.
Okay, Stephen Horrel, thank you so much for being with us here on TR2 World and sharing that analysis with us.
Thank you for having me.